Our next keynote presentation is going to be Mrs. Jean McGonigal. It will be on gamification. For those who don't know, Jane lives in California, and on the way here, she received a call from her husband, and that because of the fires on California, and her family had to be evacuated. Naturally, she changed her travel plans and took the next flight home. However, as we have heard so much about we can do with modern technology, this does not mean that she will not be presenting. So I'm going to call her. Jean, are you there? Can you hear us? Here you are.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Hello, Jean. My name is Karin. I'm the MC. Welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
I'm very sorry. We are very sorry about your circumstances. And thank you. Thank you again for being here. How are you?
I'm great. I'm honored to be able to join you virtually. Thank you so much.
Okay, go on. Thank you. Thank you very much. You can start.
Take it away?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you. Well, I'm so delighted to be joining you virtually. In true video game fashion, you'll have my avatar today instead of my actual presence. I did so much want to be there in person because this is such an exciting time for games in general and for the lottery industry. And I'm delighted to have the chance to connect with you again. Many of you I met in 2014 in Rome at the summit that year. And I wanted to start today by catching you up with some of the exponential growth that has happened in video gaming since I last saw you. So this is where we are currently. We're at 2.6 billion people on the planet who play video games regularly, on average an hour a day. And this is up 1.6 billion people from 2014. So 150% growth since the last time we talked. And as you can imagine, most of these numbers are coming from the millennial generation and Generation Z. So roughly 3/4 of millennials play games regularly, video games regularly, and over 80% of Generation Z. So this group is gaming at higher and higher numbers. And it's not just how many people are playing, but also the amount of time that we're putting into playing these games. So we're at 12 billion hours a week that are being spent playing video games. This is twice as many hours as 2014. But the exponential growth in sheer numbers is not, I think, the most exciting thing to have happened in the gaming scene since we last spoke. The most exciting thing that's changed is how gamers understand the role that video games play in their lives. And one of the greatest signals of this shift was the Advantage Games and Wellbeing Survey, a global marketplace survey of advanced gamer economies, including Europe, North America, Asia, Latin America, Australia, New Zealand. And this survey asked people who regularly play games at least once a week, what benefits do you think video games offer you in your real life? And the responses are incredibly illuminating as to why gamers are willing to spend 12 billion hours a week playing. You can see the numbers here. The bar represents what percentage of gamers believe that games are giving them this benefit. At the top, we see thinking skills and dexterity from the manipulation of the game. But the numbers that really caught people's attention were around things like emotional well-being. 74% of video gamers think video games improve their emotional well-being. 70% of gamers believe that these games reduce their anxiety. 70% believe that these video games improve their social well-being, their social relationships. 66% of video gamers believe the games are improving their physical fitness, which we'll look at that in a moment, but that definitely runs against some stereotypes. We see the numbers for mental stimulation, fighting dementia among aging gamers, and then some really kind of profound soft benefits like encouraging open-mindedness. 75% say it improves their life satisfaction. 74% says it maintains optimism. 72% for keeping up the relationships. And a whopping 68% say video games add purpose to their lives. And the reason why I wanted to share with you this transformation and how people think about video games, that it's not just for fun, it's not just for excitement, but that it delivers these incredibly important, tangible, and meaningful benefits to their lives. Because what I believe is possible is that 10 years from now, we might reconvene, look at the results from a 2028 global marketplace survey of lotteries, and that when people are asked, what benefits do you think lotteries offer in your real life? That they would say the same thing, that they would be able to say at rates of 3/4 and upwards that lotteries improve their mental health, reduce anxiety and depression, improve their social relationships and help them stay in contact with friends and family, that lotteries improve their physical health, that it adds meaning and purpose to their lives. And that's not traditionally how people necessarily talk about lotteries. Like video games historically, they're often talked about as fun and excitement. But where I work at the Institute for the Future in Palo Alto, California, we have this motto on our window. If you were to come to visit us, it'd be the first thing you see, which is that any useful statement about the future should at first seem ridiculous. And while it may seem a little bit absurd to consider that 10 years from now, lotteries will be seen primarily not just as a way to add some excitement to your life, but to improve your physical, your mental, your social, and emotional well-being. What I want to talk to you about today is how we can look at what's happened in the video game industry and see that possibility for transformation, to see that it is not only possible, but actually likely that lotteries can come to play the same role as a type of game that brings all these benefits to people's real lives. And the way I'd like to do that is by walking you through some of the really interesting breakthrough design decisions from some of the most popular games of the last couple of years, games like Fortnite and Pokemon Go, mobile games like Neko Atsume and HQ Trivia, and even virtual reality, such as Ocean Rift. But before we do a deep dive into those current popular video games, I did want to do a 3-minute quick-fire recap on the most important science of video games. We talked about this a little bit in 2014, and I want to refresh your memory because all of the ideas about how video games and lotteries can transform people's physical, mental, social, and emotional health start with this one bit of science. And this has to do with what we see when people play video games, what we see happening in their brain. When we look at fMRI footage and we can see which regions of the brain are activated. 2 regions of the brain are hyperactivated when we play video games. You may recall the first area is labeled here the caudate thalamus. This is the motivation center of the brain. This is the part of the brain that lights up whenever we anticipate that something good might happen. So when we smell our favorite food, this part of the brain lights up. It says, hey, you could get your favorite food. Go get it. And it gives us a burst of extra attention and extra physical energy to pursue our goal. Or when you're coming home from a long trip and you're about to see your partner or your kids and you're tired from the long flight, but you're just about to walk through that door, it gives you that burst of attention and physical energy and positive affect as you're about to get that hug from the person that you missed. This part of the brain gives us essentially the kind of willpower to stay engaged with the world around us, to bring extra attention and effort to our goals. And it lights up like crazy when we play video games. In fact, it lights up every time we make a decision or take a turn, because every time we make a move, we fire a virtual weapon, we swap 2 candy pieces, we put out some food for our virtual cats, and we're waiting to see what will happen. We're anticipating that the choice we made will help us get closer to our goals, that we will get some benefit in the virtual world. And we make so many decisions and take so many turns in video games, up to 60 decisions a minute. You get this kind of hyper activation of this region. So this part of the brain is giving us tremendous increased attention, increased willpower, and determination to stay engaged. And the other part of the brain that lights up continuously when we're playing video games is the hippocampus, which is the part of the brain associated with learning. When our brain perceives that we're in an environment where we can get feedback on our actions that will allow us to improve our strategy or adapt our decisions to do better in the future, this part of the brain fires up, it puts us into a kind of learning hyperdrive. and it allows us to absorb more information faster, analyze that information faster, so that we actually do learn and improve faster than we normally would. This part of the brain fires up every time we take a turn, make a decision, throw a pokeball, whatever we're doing, because the brain knows we're going to get immediate feedback. Video games are incredibly high immediate impact environments where we are going to see immediately if we did in fact do what we thought we would do. So these two regions of the brain, they create this kind of powerful 1-2 punch. They work together where we stay engaged with our goals and we're actually learning and improving faster, so we're more likely to achieve those goals. And one of the things that we've observed historically is that this is essentially the opposite of depression, that these are the same two regions of the brain that are chronically underactivated when we're depressed. In fact, these regions of the brain shrink in size and lose gray matter when we're depressed. But over years of frequent video game play, they increase in gray matter, they increase in size. So this is literally neurologically the opposite of depression, video game play. Not only do we believe something good could happen, we believe it could happen through our own efforts, through our own attention and our own ability to learn and improve. And this really gives an incredible boost to our self-confidence, to our belief in our ability to set goals and learn and achieve them. And it's why I talk about gamers as being super empowered, hopeful individuals. So that's the recap. That's the number one finding in video game neuroscience. Since we last spoke, there has been some really interesting applications of this research. One of them is called the game transfer effect. And how this works is that when you have to do something difficult, whether you're trying to be creative for a problem that you've had difficulty solving, or you're trying to motivate yourself to do something that you've been putting off or resisting, or you're trying to put yourself in a better mindset for an activity that makes you anxious, so you want to approach it with that super empowered, hopeful mindset, you can trigger the game transfer effect, where all you have to do is play a video game that is challenging for you for 10 minutes, get those regions of the brain activated, get the blood flowing, and then it puts you in a mindset to tackle that real world challenge or tackle that activity. It's kind of like if you wanted to take a selfie of yourself, like with your biceps really looking strong, you might do 100 push-ups before you took the photo. And that would get the muscles all popping and your photo would look great. It's the same idea that you can stimulate these regions of the brain and put them into that super empowered, hopeful mindset, and then shift your context. And in fact, I personally have been involved in a lot of the research to validate this hypothesis that you can have a game transfer effect. My best known game is a mobile app or a web app called Super Better, where we've been able to test with more than 1 million players so far. The simple idea that you can put yourself in a gameful mindset, the super empowered, hopeful mindset, and then try to do something in real life that's difficult with you so that you can alleviate some of your depression or your anxiety and achieve real world goals. We've been able to study this in clinical trials and randomized controlled studies and had very strong scientific research from places like the University of Pennsylvania's Positive Psychology Center and Ohio State University's Medical Research Center, showing that, among other things, by playing a game and then shifting to a real world goal that you have or a real world challenge, that you can face that challenge with more optimism, more self-efficacy, meaning you have confidence in your ability to handle the problem, that you'll have higher life satisfaction and stronger perceived social support, and that when you tackle these real world goals, you'll feel less anxiety, feel less depression, and feel less hopelessness. And other researchers have picked up this game and checked to see its efficacy and published meta-analyses comparing it to other apps that are designed to do the same thing. Not games, not gameful apps, but apps that do, therapy or educational apps or habit change apps. And they found that this game transfer effect actually had the largest positive impact on reducing depression out of 22 different apps that were studied, and that our gameful transfer effect approach had the largest positive impact out of 15 different apps that were studied for anxiety. So I wanted to share this with you because the way that we did this, the way that we created Super Better was simply by borrowing the design breakthrough ideas of top video games, which is something that I believe the lottery industry can do as well. Just as I with Super Better looked at the most cutting edge popular video games and said, how can we replicate some of those interactions in a context right before somebody's about to do something in the real world that's difficult for them? You can look at the same design breakthroughs and start to think about what it might mean to incorporate them into your own business. So now we're going to shift to looking at how some of the top video games, the top 5 video games from the past few years, are actually delivering some of these real life benefits: physical resilience, mental resilience, emotional resilience, and social resilience. And we're going to start with Pokemon Go. So Pokemon Go, I'm sure many of you have had the chance to play this yourself. It reached its peak popularity 2 summers ago in 2016. This was the first breakthrough augmented reality app. And augmented reality is, I'm really intrigued to see how the lottery industry might interface with this in the future, where the whole world could be imbued with opportunities or possibilities to win, for something good to happen. Pokemon Go, you may recall, was the fastest downloaded app in the 8-year history of app. In fact, it was the fastest growing product or service in all of human history. In fact, it had 500 million downloads in the first 30 days, 750 million as of 2017, and almost 1 billion people have played this game by the end of 2018. Half of the players were kids, half of the players adults, 54% female, 46% male. This one game has $1 billion in revenue annually. It's still in the top 3 grossing apps. And in fact, 1 in 100 people on the planet still play, even though we're not at peak Pokemon Go popularity. 1 in 100 people are still regularly playing this game. And I want to talk to you about the big design decisions they made that helped this be such a breakthrough success. Decisions that I think you could borrow for your own industry. The first is what I call on-demand chances to succeed. Now, what this game did that had never been done before was it took that feeling that we have in virtual worlds when we walk into a massively multiplayer online game, and everywhere we look in the virtual world, there's something we can do. There's a quest we can complete. There's a character we can talk to who needs our help. There's always the chance to do something that will advance our progress or advance our position in the game. Something good can happen anywhere we go in the virtual world. What Pokemon Go did was transfer this feeling that something good could happen anywhere we go to the real world. It overlaid it using Google Maps so that literally when we sit up, wake up in the morning, get out of bed, all around us, we're surrounded by opportunities to catch a Pokemon creature that we want, to spin a Pokestop and collect valuable resources, to encounter someone else playing who could help us level up faster. Suddenly, the entire world was populated with this on-demand opportunity for success. And no matter where we were, if we were bored or angry or frustrated or lonely or anxious or depressed, all we had to do was pull out our phone and have, at that moment, a special opportunity based on where we were for something good to happen. This kind of abundance of opportunity had never, ever been experienced in the real world before. Up until this point, gamers had only experienced it online in virtual worlds. And this is the number one thing to understand about Pokemon Go, is how it brought this feeling of abundant opportunity, and that part of the brain being activated, that something good could happen. It's firing off literally everywhere we go. The second design decision that was really important is that nothing is scarce in the Pokemon Go environment. For example, if there's a valuable Pokemon that I'm trying to capture, I want to get a Snorlax, and it populates right in front of me on the corner. If there are 100 other people in my environment who want to catch the Snorlax, there are actually 101 copies of that Snorlax. We're not competing with each other. I don't have to get there first. I don't have to beat you to it. I don't have to fight you for it. The more, the merrier. The more people who come, the more essentially resources or prizes there are. And so we're not in competition with each other. And that means I can enjoy people's social presence more. I can see them as allies and collaborators rather than competitors. And this created a kind of social abundance. It reinforced the feeling that something good could happen anywhere and turned it into every person around me is somebody I can actually ask for help. You're going to show me where the powerful creature is because you don't have to beat me to it. So this sense of abundance, not just in how many resources I could freely collect, everywhere I go, I spin a Pokestop, I get something for free, and it's going to help me in my game, and I just wait 5 minutes, I can spin it again. They really didn't create a sense of scarcity. They really wanted to have that feeling that not only could something good happen at any time, any place, but there was so much good that could be shared abundantly. And the third design decision they made was to create this kind of collaboration radar where you could see literally on the map where other players were gathering. And if you wanted to have a positive social experience, all you had to do was go to that place on the map. They did this with the lures, the little pink falling leaves, when you would pull out your phone and look at the map. Anywhere you saw pink falling leaves, you knew there was at least one other player there. They had set a lure, which would bring more Pokemon to the location. And that meant more people would come because everybody wants to go where the Pokemon are. So if I wanted to find other people who were as excited about this game as I am, and who we could work together and we could hunt the rare creatures together, we could level up our avatars together faster. All I had to do was look for the falling pink leaves. And this was the first time that gamers had ever had this in the real world, where if you were lonely or bored and you just wanted to have that positive connection with somebody else face to face, this would allow you to do that. Since 2016, if you played it at the beginning just to see what it was all about and haven't come back, you missed a big launch this summer, their friending and trading feature. So I'd encourage you to go back if you played it but haven't seen this. Get some hands-on experience with the friending and trading features because this is really interesting. Now, not only can you trade Pokemon with people in Pokemon Go, but you actually can create friendships with people where the more you play together, the more you level up faster every time you play together. And so your friendships actually have different levels. And this encourages people to spend more time with their main friends and family, physical proximity, and then they get better faster every time they play together. If I had to sum up all of these design decisions, it would be with this G.K. Chesterton quote. There is one thing which gives a radiance to everything. It's the idea of something around the corner. And I think we can all relate to that feeling of curiosity and hope as we, if there's something around the corner, we're going to peek around. What will it be? Is it what we hope it will be? And it, just like the caudate thalamus firing up, it gives us that energy, it gives us that attention, that positive emotion that propels us out the door and around the corner to see what it is. Now, what happens when you have the feeling that there's something around the corner, literally every corner on Earth? So this is not a metaphor anymore. You have a map of all the corners, and literally every corner, there's something in Pokemon Go that you can collect or trade or connect with. What happens? Well, a lot of good things happen for mental health, for starters. That summer and continuing today, we started to see a lot of headlines and personal testimonials that people were using Pokemon Go to improve their mental health. And you can see some of those headlines here. Pokemon Go's mental health benefits are real. Pokemon Go helping people with depression conquer barriers. Pokemon Go helped me with social anxiety. It was helping kids with autism feel more comfortable in unfamiliar settings or unfamiliar social environments. And you can still see these testimonials if you go to Twitter or Instagram and search for Pokemon Go and keywords like depression or anxiety. And you'll see people having this outpouring of feeling transformed by this game, essentially, saying things like, this has been a better treatment for my depression than anything my doctor prescribed or therapist recommended. This is actually making me want to leave my room and interact with people. Finally, after years of depression, I love this so much. Real talk, as someone with anxiety, depression, the fact that I have spent most of this weekend outside with friends is unreal. And I read you those because the thing that was so astounding to many mental health practitioners at the time and researchers like myself was that people who had been trying to treat their depression and anxiety for years, who were in therapy, who were on medication, who had the goals of getting out and doing more and being more engaged, they suddenly felt that this game had flipped a magic switch in their brains, and their brains were working finally the way they wanted to. I did research on this topic because I wanted to understand this better. And the quick results are that essentially Pokemon Go was reverse engineering the brain to remember how to imagine that something good could happen. That the sheer volume of reasons to anticipate that something good could happen when there's literally something around every corner where you can always find a person to connect with, or find a resource to collect, or find an opportunity to level up your avatar, that it essentially provided so much blood flow to these regions of the brain that had been understimulated and were shrinking in size, that essentially just kickstarted those loops, rebuilt the neurological pathways, and suddenly people whose brains had been shut down in these regions were fired back up. And it was really transformative. People also saw benefits in their physical health for very similar reasons. So people who wanted to exercise, people who had been wanting to lose weight or get more fit, suddenly this game turned them into people who could follow through with their intentions and actually adopt the habits they wanted to adopt. We saw headlines like Pokemon Go has everyone exercising. Pokemon Go is so addictive that people are getting way more exercise than they're used to. That headline was actually an article on a gamer website explaining sore muscles to gamers who were like, why am I in pain? Do I have the flu? They weren't used to being so physically sore from all of the exercise they were getting. And in fact, this was a pretty profound shift in the amount of exercise that people were getting. When data scientists studied the impact, they saw that there were population level surges in physical activity when you could track on people's phones. Did they have the game installed? How long was the game open? How many steps were they taking? How much physical activity were getting? People who had been very physically active had 26% increase in steps per day, and people who had been less physically active had 67% increase in steps per day, which worked out to be the equivalent of about an extra mile a day of walking and an extra 30 minutes of extra physical activity per player. And Microsoft Research actually published a peer-reviewed scientific paper showing that just in the United States alone, this game had added 2.825 million years to the life expectancy of the United States population just in the first 60 days of play, based on the additional physical activity. And again, you can go online and you can see on Instagram and Twitter, people still talking about how much weight they're losing and how much activity they're getting. Mathematician friends and I estimated that over 571,000 pounds are being lost every day by Pokemon Go players who identify trying to lose weight as the primary reason they play this game. In case you're curious, the number one reason people say they play this game is to spend more face time with friends and family. And the second reason is to be more physically active or to lose weight. Now, why were these people suddenly able to exercise when they hadn't been able to before? There's a lot of research here. I'm going to give you the 30-second version, and I encourage you to Google these terms like ventilatory threshold if you want to dig deeper. But it turns out that roughly half of the population, when they exercise, their brains freak out because they think that the exercise is going to kill them. They have less oxygen coming in than carbon dioxide going out because they're working out and they trying to breathe to get the oxygen, and their brains say, oh my gosh, you're not getting enough oxygen, you're going to die, stop. And for those people, exercise is very unpleasant. It's perceived as very stressful. They don't like it. And no matter how much they want to be physically active, no matter how highly they value health, every time they try to start an exercise routine, they quit because it's really unpleasant and it's very stressful and anxiety producing. It looks like what was happening with this population who started playing Pokemon Go is that they'd finally found something that could override the brain's reaction to exercise and bombard them with the belief that something good could happen. And then they were able to ignore the brain saying, stop, you're going to die, and instead say, keep going, something good is going to happen. And suddenly you had this whole generations of people who had tried to work out, tried to be physically active. Suddenly they were able to do it. They were able to reverse their brain's natural reaction. In case you're wondering, the other half of the population, when they exercise, their brain also tells them that they might die because they're taking in less oxygen than they're producing carbon dioxide. But for those people, their brain says, well, if we're going to die, let's try to enjoy it. And it pumps out endorphins and other hormones that are really pleasurable, like our natural opiates. And those people get runner's high and they really love exercise. So if you're one of those people, you don't need Pokemon Go to enjoy exercise. And by the way, 43% of Pokemon Go players report that they've lost weight. So you can see that it's actually having a profound impact on their lives. Now, the number one lesson of this game that I think is the entire game industry has been rocked by this finding, and more we're seeing games that tap into this idea, is that most gamers, most of those 2.6 billion people, are not trying to escape the real world, that given a chance and better engagement, they want to play with purpose. They want to play games that help them improve their mental, their social, or their physical well-being. And in fact, that when our brain believes something good can happen on demand, anywhere, anytime, then we are inspired to take real-world actions that help us lead better lives. Now, we can look at other games and we can see some of these same design decisions starting to trickle down and infiltrate across the entire gamer culture. Fortnite, for example. If you haven't played Fortnite yet, you have to. Fortnite is this year's version of Pokemon Go. You have to try this so you can get a hands-on sense of what this is like. Right now, there are 125 million people playing this game on average 10 hours a week. 36% of students who play it have skipped class to play it. 20% of employees who play it have skipped work to play it. It's $2 billion in revenue so far this year, and this is a free-to-play game, which is something I'm going to talk about a little bit more, the idea of free-to-play lotteries. It's actually produced $100 million in prize money in tournaments this year. So this is a gaming environment where gamers expect through their own efforts and abilities to be able to improve and succeed in real financial ways. And it's such a popular thing to watch. We have upwards of 42 million people watching individual matches being streamed live. People are watching this and it's become a kind of global sport. And it uses all of the same design decisions. The fact that there are on-demand chances to succeed. In Fortnite, the most popular mode, it's Battle Royale mode. You're trying to be the last player of among 100 players or the last team among 25 teams to survive. You can play it on any platform, literally any technology platform, your laptop, your iPhone, your Android, your Xbox, your PS4, your Mac computer, your Nintendo Switch. So anywhere, anytime, you can pull out a device and you can literally drop out of the air glider into the game. And the moment you lose, you just power it back on. You can drop down in again. There's no such thing as permanent loss in this environment. It's completely abundant. You just get back on the airship, drop in, you're surrounded by 100 other players again. And so this sense that I can keep trying and I can keep improving and something good can still happen for me. They're really replicating that effectively. Nothing is scarce in this world. If you haven't played Fortnite, you might think of it as a kind of a shooter game where you're trying to destroy your enemy, but it's also a building game. It's also like Minecraft. Just like Minecraft, everything in the environment can be gathered and mined and used to build something. And players are constantly building escape routes and structures to hide in and to get a better, more strategic vantage point on the other teams. And so this kind of creativity and the sense that everything I see I can collect and use also builds that sense of abundance, that nothing is scarce in this world. There is, of course, a built-in collaboration. If you're playing a team-based version, you can see where all the other players are. Of course, if sometimes you're on a team of 50 players versus 50 players, so you feel like you're just surrounded with teammates who can help you. But more importantly, the sense of collaboration radar is happening on streaming platforms like Twitch, where people are streaming live the games they're playing, just like I'm streaming live to you now. And 150 million hours are being spent watching just this one game, Fortnite, on Twitch every single month. And this really lets players feel like they're a part of something bigger. Anytime they want to, they can tune in, see someone else playing, they can learn from their strategies and experience, or they can stream themselves and have an audience. And that sense of being a part of something bigger, where you have 42 million people watching a single event, is really a big part of the social well-being of this game. And then as you look at other games like HQ Trivia, which was the #2 mobile game last year in the United States, this is a real-time trivia game where you're competing against people worldwide. They have as many as 2 million people playing in the same trivia game at the same time, and you're sharing a jackpot. Sometimes it's $20,000, sometimes it's $100,000. And this was the first game to combine both that streaming aspect, that there are millions of people playing at the same time. It has kind of live community sense with real-time financial rewards like Fortnite. And I love these pictures here. This was one of the players who won $11.30 playing HQ Trivia. You know, it looks like she won $1 million, but this sense of having an audience, of being part of 2 million people all playing and watching at the same time, that even when you win a small prize, it's incredibly meaningful and incredibly exciting, partly because you had to use a little bit of your own skill and ingenuity to win. Then you have games like Neko Atsume, which started in Japan and became a global phenomenon. This is a mobile game where you collect cats. You put out food and toys for cats, and then they come and visit you. And that's really all you do in the game. Every time you open your phone, you can see, is there a cat playing in my yard right now? Or did they leave me a gift? There's almost nothing to do. It's like this incredibly passive way to feel like something good could happen in any moment. And people started talking in particular about this game as being a really powerful tool for anxiety and depression, and also giving them something to talk to their friends and family about. You know, which cat has visited you today? Have you seen this cat yet? How can I get Lady Meow Meow to come visit me? And so there's been a lot of conversation about games like this being used for mental well-being and social well-being, because anytime you want to feel like something good could happen, you just bring out your phone, and instead of checking Facebook or Twitter to see if a real friend left you a comment, because frankly, we know Facebook and Twitter are really toxic these days, and it's a place for bad news and fake news. People pull out the phone instead, and they look to see if, oh, a cute little cat came to visit me. The follow-up game to Neko Atsume was the traveling frog game. This became the #1 mobile game in China in particular, was really popular. The frog, you give the frog presents and it goes on trips and it sends you postcards periodically. That's all that happens. You just pull out your phone and see if the frog sent you a postcard. Oh, where's my little frog? Where has he been? And that's it. That's the whole game. But particularly among the millennial generation in China, this game was found to have incredible mental health benefits, that it provided them a kind of inner peace. And again, this is an environment where something good could happen at any time, and you just pull out your phone, and that something good is as simple as a postcard from a virtual character. The last game I wanted to look at with you is Ocean Rift. This is a virtual reality game, not quite the phenomenon of the other games. VR hasn't really had its breakthrough game yet. But Ocean Rift is a really nice one. You get to swim around an ocean and be around all these virtual creatures. And what's interesting to me about this game, Ocean Rift, is that it's been taken up in hospitals. Hospitals around the world now are using these virtual reality systems to help decrease the pain medication that they have to prescribe patients who are undergoing surgery or difficult rehabilitation treatments. And so we're starting to see headlines like, "Are you afraid of needles? VR pain medication could fix that." Kids are getting VR headsets so they don't even notice when they're getting shots or IVs. And in fact, they're starting to use VR as a way to reduce prescriptions to opioids and reduce the incidence of addiction and side effects. And so virtual reality is starting to have a moment as being an incredibly powerful tool to activate those regions of the brain. Something good could happen. You're so focused on what good things could happen that you're not paying attention to signals of pain or anxiety. So that brings us to, what do you guys do with all of this? So here's some questions I want to leave you with, some questions to think about. What would it feel like in lotteries if we were constantly reminded of abundance, if we had unlimited opportunities to win often, anywhere, anytime, and maybe even in a free-to-play environment? I know that there's just starting to be some innovation around free-to-play lotteries that are supported with advertising. The video game generation has gotten used to this business model, and it provides, I think, a lot of opportunity and food for thought for the lottery industry. What if when we played lotteries, we felt like everyone around us was a potential ally? What will streaming look like in the lottery industry? And could we have social multipliers as essentially the new Powerball? What if playing the same game at the same time as a friend of mine would somehow level up the prizes that we could earn, just the way we experience that social multiplier in video games? What would it feel like in lotteries if every time we play, we're also inspired to take real action towards a real life goal? And this is really the biggest transformation that I'm thinking about. The more we play the lottery. What if the more emotional, social, physical, mental, and societal health we would gain? And this might sound, again, a little bit absurd, but let's take a look at some real examples. There's a clinical psychologist named Stephen Goldbart who's already started looking at the application of lotteries as a kind of mental health intervention. He says so many of us have been afflicted by the financial anxiety epidemic, in which we feel tired, uncertain of what to do, and disempowered. And we may seek a magic pill to make us feel better. And in fact, it's so much fun to play the lottery, to play with the what if I won scenario, to imagine what it would be like to live our dreams. You're actually purchasing not only a fantastic fantasy ride, but also a respite from the conflict, complexity, and angst of everyday life. And he says, a lottery is a ticket of hope, a ticket of magical healing. In an era of uncertainty and global change, many of us are unsure of our personal direction. But when we buy a lottery ticket, we feel again like we did when we were a child, having hope that a better day will come, that something great could happen at any moment. And this may sound like an absurd idea, but just the way we see that video games are now being prescribed by clinical psychologists to help people treat their depression and anxiety, I think we're looking at a future in which lotteries can play the same role, that a lottery ticket has fewer side effects and far less expensive than a pharmaceutical. I want you to keep in mind that potential landscape that you have the opportunity to play in. There's also a social component to it. We know that particularly with the biggest lotteries, where I live in California, I bought my Mega Millions ticket when the prize was at $1.6 billion, the largest lottery in history. It was trending on Twitter. Literally every person you knew was playing, and it gave you something to talk about with any stranger on the street. Anywhere you went, you could ask them if they had their ticket. You could ask them what they would do if they won. It sparked conversations with family members you hadn't talked to in a while. And so I think this is a really important space to think about as well. Maybe we start to see something like the lottery transfer effect, where you play a lotto first and then tackle a real world challenge, so we can take advantage of the same super empowered, hopeful mindset. I'll leave you with 5 quick examples of people who are actually trying this and the success that they've had. Oops. Prize-linked savings accounts are becoming increasingly popular where I live. Things like Green Dot app or the Save to Win saving system, where every time you make a deposit for your retirement or your savings account, you also are entered in a lottery. And every week, somebody who's made a deposit wins the lottery. These new banks are designed to increase savings and financial health in communities where they're more likely to buy a lottery ticket than to save. And in fact, they found that 56% of accounts were opened by people who had never, ever had savings before. So this is a way that people are improving their financial long-term well-being and also still playing the lottery. It's a huge innovation space that you guys have to play in. There's been a lot of published scientific peer-reviewed papers on weight loss commitment lotteries. The way these work is that everybody gets a lottery ticket and then they draw a winner. And if you win, they check to see if you've achieved a predetermined weight loss goal. You wanted to lose 10 pounds or 5 pounds or 20 pounds. If you won the lottery, but you haven't achieved your weight loss goal, then you don't get the prize. And this kind of lottery plays off the fact that everybody can imagine themselves winning, and they can imagine the regret they will feel if they win and they are not eligible to claim their prize. So they found that 57% of people who participated in this kind of weight loss commitment lottery actually achieved their weight loss goals, compared to only 22% of non-players. People losing weight is one of the biggest challenges that our planet faces for long-term health and well-being of our society. So imagine the role that lotteries could play in helping the planet achieve that goal. The World Bank has been involved with a really innovative program to reduce new infections of HIV and other STDs in Africa. So they've done things like the HIV screening lottery, where everybody in the village or the community gets a lottery ticket, and then if you win, you get screened for STDs. And if you have a new STD, HIV or otherwise, then you don't get your prize. And they found that new infection rates was actually reduced by 21% because people wanted to be eligible. This was the most successful intervention to prevent new infections of HIV that has ever been tried in sub-Saharan Africa. So pretty remarkable role that lotteries can play there. You've probably seen the Safe Driving Lottery. That's got a lot of visibility, where they took a picture of everybody's license plate when they drove through a stoplight and to see if they were driving at a safe speed. And instead of sending somebody a speeding ticket, they sent them a winning lottery ticket. They found that this reduced the speeding and the average speed from 32 kilometers an hour to 25 kilometers an hour to everybody was driving safely. The Philadelphia Voter Lottery was used to try to increase voter turnout, and people who voted were eligible for a lottery, and it actually increased voter turnout by 5%, and 25% of new voters cited the lottery as the primary reason they were voting. So as we explore ways to maintain engagement with democracy, something that is an urgent challenge for our planet now as well, lotteries may play a role. And finally, fantasy sports and sports betting, I know, is kind of an emerging space that's connected with lotteries. And I wanted to share with you, this was a new patent just awarded last month. It's a patent for physical activity-based fantasy sports leagues, where in order to draft your favorite player, you have to have more physical activity on your fitness tracker than anybody else in your league. And people who participated in this fantasy sports league increased their physical activity daily by 30%. So hopefully that gives you some idea of how lotteries could actually get involved in increasing physical resilience, mental resilience, emotional resilience, and social resilience. And what I wanted to really convey to you today is that this is how you make lotteries more like video games, because increasingly, this is the role that video games are playing in people's lives, delivering real-world benefits. It's why we are happy to spend 12 billion hours a week playing them. It doesn't feel like a waste of time. It doesn't feel like a waste of money. I hope to see you again in 2028, where we'll be talking about all the ways that lotteries are offering these same benefits to their players. Thank you so much for considering this slightly ridiculous idea with me, and I hope it inspires you to improve people's lives and continue creating an incredible growth for your industry. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jean. Thank you. Jean, do you have any little more time? Because we have time for questions and answers. If you want, this is a unique opportunity to ask a question to Jean. Is there someone? Anyone? No, there is no question? No question, but I have one question, Jean. I think it's the first time that I could see my two little daughters, 11 years old and 9 years old, brains in your slide, inside your brains, all enlightened. And I said, okay, they're playing not too much, I think, her video games. So my question is, you have done so many scientific research into the ways all games changes how we respond to stress, challenge, and pain. And I was wondering, I really don't know the American educational program, primary school, high school, but your ideas in Super Better, I was looking for Super Better, are so good to be applied at school, both primary and high school, to achieve these things, resilience things. And have you got the opportunity to work with the children in schools?
Oh, yes, definitely. I mean, Super Better is used widely in schools, particularly in populations where there's been some trauma, everything from climate change, refugees, migrant populations, to children who've survived violence at home or violence in their community. But more broadly, we're seeing in the American school system a move to something called project-based learning, which is designed to be more like video games, where you have a clear goal, a clear challenge, you form a team to solve it, and instead of just trying to perform on tests or examinations, you're actually performing in a real-world context or around a creative challenge, and that's the biggest transformation we're seeing in the educational system at all levels, particularly at the high school and university levels. So those ideas are trickling in.
Oh, thank you.
And I did want to say, I apologize that I can't be there in person for extended conversation afterward, but by all means, my contact information is freely available online, and I would be happy to answer questions and talk to anyone who's interested in exploring these ideas further. I have a really strong belief that lotteries are going to play a profound role for transformation, not just in the money they raise for causes, but in the ways that they transform individual players' lives. I believe that will happen, and I'd be happy to be a part of that and continue this conversation with anyone who would like to.
Okay, Jean, thank you very much. You were actually in Buenos Aires, really. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. This is
Thank you so much.
a new applause for you. Bye-bye.